Should you hire a coach or not? In this video, I'm going to tell you the 7 reasons why you wouldn't want to hire a coach. And there's a bonus one at the end that's especially relevant for coaches. So if you want to be a coach, start a coaching business, or expand a coaching business, make sure you watch the whole thing to the end, because that last one is probably the most important one for you. The 7 reasons that you don't need a life coach. We talk a lot about needing life coaches, and now we're going to give you the 7 reasons why you might not want a life coach. So I feel like we need a drum roll or something.
Can you do that? Like can you control your tongue? Can you do that?
We're recording. Do you know we're live?
I thought that it would be cool.
Like that?
Yes.
Yes. Is that a better drum roll?
Probably less disruptive.
Yeah. Yes, it is. So the 7, now 8 reasons you don't need a life coach. So reason number 1, you don't want to be successful.
Oh, goodness.
I think everybody could probably tell what this list is going to look like and sound like. If you don't want to be successful, then you don't need a life coach or a business coach, especially in business. Most of the people that watch this channel, I think, want to be coaches and want to build a coaching business. And one of the best ways to make sure that doesn't work for you is don't get any help, because there's not a lot that's intuitive about building a coaching business. There's not a lot that's intuitive about business itself. I think anybody that just tries to go into business, any kind of industry, any product, without help, support, somebody that understands business, is pretty much guaranteed to fail, because we are not taught how to think like a business owner. We're not taught how to be entrepreneurial. We are taught primarily how to toe the line, how to follow orders, how to be an employee. And so it's extremely difficult to build a business without a coach. I've had, I don't know how many coaches. I have 3 now. I know you've had many, many coaching packages and coaches and spoken to so many people. And it's interesting to me. I don't think it's surprising based on what I just said about how we are typically programmed, but it's interesting how many people are just kind of determined to do things on their own. And I know that's just because of the way that we're brought up to some degree too, not just how we're programmed around being an employee, but how we're brought up to think that getting help is weakness, or if you can do things on your own, then you're somehow smarter, stronger, or whatever the case is. But in business, I mean, it's nearly impossible for somebody to build a business, and especially a coaching business, when you as the coach are the product. It's hard enough to build a business and to understand what it takes in marketing and all the different systems and stuff like that. But when you're the product and it's your face on the internet and your content and your lessons and all that stuff that are trying to help people out, it is a shutdown for almost everybody. And I just don't know anybody who's been successful building a business. I don't know anybody who hasn't been more successful in their life when they've hired a life coach. And I think what's critical to understand is that we're just simply not wired, nor programmed, but we're not wired to get the most out of ourselves. Well, our brains are wired to keep us safe. Our brains are wired to avoid risks. Our brains are wired to keep us comfortable physically, emotionally, energetically. And that is not a good combination for getting the most out of ourselves. And yet so many of us run around thinking, we should be disciplined and we should just be motivated. And, if we have our head on straight, then we'll just be able to stay focused and do all the things that we know we should do. And we just don't, because we're humans.
I love that you said wired, like wired, and then on top of that, programmed. Like we just don't but like we don't have a chance without support at all. At all. And yet, do you think a lot of people are talking about that? Right? Because it seems so obvious to me based on what I hear you talk about and what we know to be true. But why so many of us are committed to doing like the absolute impossible thing in the most difficult and challenging way? It's fascinating to me.
I think we have placed a lot of value on doing things on our own. Like as little kids, we get all excited when the kids can walk on their own, or when they can tie their shoes on their own, or when they can dress themselves on their own. So from a very early age, we place value on doing things on our own. And then I think as we become adults, we're still valuing doing things on our own, but from a different perspective. I think when we're kids, it means that we are growing up, or we are becoming more self-sufficient, and that feels good, and we're becoming more independent. And then I think as adults, on top of that programming, we learn that getting support is a sign of weakness. If you need somebody to help you out, then you're a loser on some level, Right. I just think getting help is weak. And what I've learned is that getting help is wise. And so I think it's the distinction between those two beliefs that are going to determine whether somebody allows themselves to get support or not. And therefore, if they allow themselves to get what they want in life faster than they normally could on their own, or if we think it's a sign of weakness, then we'll just keep sticking it out on our own. You know a little bit about that. I've heard you tell that story quite a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me though, there was an embarrassment. I thought I was the only one. Like that's the thing. I thought I was the only person who was struggling. I actually didn't hear, and maybe it's because I wasn't listening, right? Maybe people were telling their stories and I just wasn't tuned into those stories, but I didn't hear a lot of people talking about all the help that they were getting to be successful in business. I was just told all the things that I heard you say, a few minutes ago. Just work harder, focus more. You're just not doing enough action. Be more disciplined. Like I just believed that there was a fault in me internally that needed to be fixed in order for me to be successful. And if I could just figure out this thing that was wrong with me, then I would be able to achieve all the dreams that I had. Until it did, it did not at all cross my mind that maybe what I was lacking was support around removing the internal blocks. It was just like, something's wrong with you, fix that, get your head on straight and get it done. And it just, like I said, until it did, it didn't ever occur to me. It just wasn't being talked about or trained about where I was taking classes.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think there's a lot of a lot of shame internally, but also I think it's part of the way a lot of people actually teach sales, and a lot of people do sales, is that if you have a problem, then my Band-Aid will fix your problem. So if it's taught that you need help, it's really just that you need this kind of help. And a lot of times that's a product or some kind of a program, but it's really not empowering in the way we think of the word empowering and what it's going to mean for people. So it's really just fixing, right? Just like fixing from the outside, some external fix. Yeah. And I mean, that'll just never work. Nope. It'll give short-term illusion of progress, but that's about it.
Awesome. So if I don't want to have a successful business,
don't get a coach.
Don't get a coach. Awesome.
Right. You want to do number 2?
I do. So if you want to struggle and continue trying to figure things out from inside of the problem, from the perspective inside of the problem, then you don't need a life coach. Yeah. That was me, committed to the struggle. I think that I thought, and I don't believe that this was conscious at the time, but Sean, I think I thought that I would be better. Like I would be smarter. Like it would be like, haha, this was really, really hard. And I struggled and I made it. And look at how smart I am. Like all by myself, right? Like, bless my heart.
I think there's a different connotation for that song, but the wording fits. Yeah. That's another piece of our programming. I think that if we can figure it out, whoever can figure out a problem is smart. So the harder the problem, then the smarter you are if you can figure it out. But I also think there's a lot of people who believe they deserve to struggle from like a self-esteem standpoint. And so they're actually not interested in stopping the struggle if they deserve it energetically or emotionally. And those two things together, I mean, that's a hell of a combo. I deserve to struggle, and if I can figure it out, then I'll be smart. But then how do you figure it out if you deserve to struggle? Right? Like we often won't allow ourselves to figure it out if we deserve the struggle or the punishment or whatever it is that we've decided that we deserve. Yeah. So a lot of people won't actually allow themselves to get off that cycle because of the internal beliefs and the programming.
No, no, thank you. I'd rather suffer.
Yeah, I'm good. I know how to do this. I know how to suffer. There's a lot to that. I mean, all of us on some level want to be successful, and all of us on some level don't. We don't, at least we don't want the obstacles actually removed. And those are not exactly the same. So we want to succeed, but a lot of us don't necessarily want the obstacles removed, because if the obstacles are removed, then we actually have to do the work to succeed. And if we do the work to succeed, but it doesn't work, right? We're not successful. Well, then that means we suck, and maybe we are a loser, and maybe it won't work for us, and so forth. So we are unconsciously committed to maintaining our obstacles for that reason. It doesn't make any sense. And that's one of the reasons why we can't figure this stuff out from inside the problem, because it's the thing that is creating the problem. And so we're asking the entity, that thing that's trying to keep us safe and is afraid of risks and all the things we talked about, we're asking that to tear down the walls that it built. It's just going to be a tough road there.
Yeah. I remember the first time I heard you talk about that concept that most of us actually don't want to have our excuses taken away from us, right? Having those obstacles removed. It's a really powerful awareness to come to. Yeah, I think a lot of us have gotten comfortable with the struggle.
Yeah, we are much more committed to familiarity than freedom. Damn, how about that one, huh? Consciously, we're committed to freedom. We want freedom. We rebel against restriction. But freedom is actually really scary in many areas of our lives. And so we'll choose familiarity over
especially
the
if we don't,
unfamiliar.
Sorry about that. I was just thinking, especially if we don't trust ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a deep one. All right, number 3. Committed to being if you are committed to being the first person to ever figure it out on your own, if that's really important to you, then make sure you don't get a coach, because with a coach, although, even though I say that, part of good coaching is allowing the client to figure it out. So that's the sort of a catch-22, I guess. where if we think we're going to figure it out all on our own, we don't want any help. But the right kind of support will actually allow you to figure it out on your own, because that's the essence, or one of the tenets of really, really good coaching, is that you don't solve other people's problems. You allow people to solve their own problems. You allow people to come up with their own ideas. And the ideas that we'll come up with when we're getting guidance from a facilitator, from a coach, are deeper and much more powerful than the ideas that we will come up with on our own pretty much all the time. That doesn't mean that we can't have these deep realizations when we're in meditation or we're just out walking or trying to figure out our life to some degree, sure. But not getting over the obstacles or uncovering the real reasons why we're holding ourselves back, that requires a guide. Because again, we're going upstream, right? We're swimming against the current of sabotage and how we hold ourselves back. But the idea that having the right kind of coaching actually brings something out of you from a much, much deeper level will retain the idea that you figured it out. Or at least you came to the fuel, you got the leverage, you got the reasons, and quite often you actually do have the ideas in your mind. But you mentioned a moment ago about not trusting ourselves. A lot of times we will come up with the right ideas, but we don't trust ourselves to implement, or we don't trust that those are the right ideas. And so a lot of times we will poo-poo the real answers, the real solutions that we have, because we came up with them on our own. I mean, so we're demanding that we come up with things on our own, but when we do, we don't trust them. Jeez. Bless our hearts.
Yeah, because we believe we deserve to struggle and suffer.
Good combo.
Yay! Success, here I come. You do not need a life coach if you like doing things the longer, slower, harder way. That sounds fun.
So what was it for you? You mentioned earlier that you were really, I don't know, you said beating your head up against the wall, but you were really in that space that you got to figure it out and you want to struggle and you want to get over that hump for yourself to know that you made it or whatever. So then what was that process like, and what was it that caused you to stop that cycle?
What was the process like? It was exhausting.
Fun?
Yeah, it was horrible. I was miserable. I was miserable. And I just thought that it was just the way, like the way of the entrepreneur, right? To just be frustrated and irritated and just completely exhausted and totally drained and upset and emotionally tapped out and feeling like a failure and wondering if I was ever going to be able to be successful and if I really actually had what it took. And this was on a daily basis. Like I was just miserable and masked, right? Because I was trying to pretend that I wasn't all of those things while desperately trying to bring people into my company. And what caused me to make a change, I think, Sean, I just got sick and tired of it. Like I really think I just hit max capacity in terms of my ability, like my capability to suffer. Like it was like, okay, I've had enough of this. I've beaten my head up against the wall for long enough. If something was going to break through, obviously it would have by now. And when I read your About Me story, it actually really like pierced something in me that you had struggled too. So a lot of the people that I was learning from up until that point weren't telling those stories. They were just telling the work harder, do your numbers stories. and I was doing all the things that they were instructing. And when I read your story and heard the things that you were training, it was, hey, this is part of the process. And now I'm on the other side. And it was like you honestly reached through my computer screen and extended your hand, like, hey, I got you. And so when I saw that there was somebody else who was actually successful, who had struggled, that made me open to the possibility that there was another way beyond what I was doing.
Yeah,
And
that's a big, go ahead.
I was just saying, honestly, I was just like, F it. Like, might as well. I've tried all these other things and they hadn't worked. So let me actually try this other thing and just see. It was not glamorous, but it was I've been doing all this other stuff. Why not?
Yeah, there's everybody that I think I've talked to in any capacity for whatever level of success they've had or done anything significant, they've had some kind of a moment where they've just said, screw it, enough is enough, and I'm willing to try something different.
Yeah.
Because this isn't working anymore.
Right.
And I think a lot of people misunderstand that that's actually a really important part of the process. This isn't working anymore. And like, we have to have an experience of this that isn't working to make the what is working, when we make that choice, valuable. Right? Like the idea, without the light, we can't, or without the dark, we can't really fully appreciate the light kind of idea.
Yeah.
And because I think people misunderstand that, then when they're going through those challenges, it's just easier to decide that success isn't for them, or it's not worth it, or they're doing it wrong, whatever it is, especially in the coaching industry.
Oh, yeah.
Because your challenges are what's going to build your value, your adversity, the lessons that you learn from the struggles is what's going to make you valuable to somebody else if you stick around. Obviously, you got to get over the hump, but for so many of us, that requires a surrender moment. And we just don't want to, for whatever reason. And that's what stretches it out, which is what you said, the longer way, the harder way, the slower way. It stretches it all out. It's so fascinating because we're so driven by shortcuts. We want to do the things faster. And yet so often we don't do the things that actually will be faster because we misinterpret, or we're tempted by the shortcuts that look like they're going to be faster. And then so many people are stuck on the shortcut cycle that never produces any kind of success. But the real thing that will make it faster looks like it's going to be a lot slower. And I think it's just the illusion of speed, the illusion of what foundational success looks like, or what it means to be foundationally good or foundationally solid and stable. It makes that looks slow. That looks unfun. And so people fall for the temptations of all the shortcuts and all the one size fits all and all the everybody wins here BS. And then that never works. And so we do the thing that we think is going to be faster, and we're on that forever, right? Unless and until we figure out, as you said, F it, this isn't working for me. Let me at least try something different. And then we can, what I believe is, go slow quickly. It might seem like we're going slow compared to what we think other people are actually doing, and often they're not. They're just lies. But once we build that stability, then we can pick up speed. And speed without stability is a train wreck. That's what that is. Speed without stability is going to crash. All right, the next one. If you prefer making the mistakes versus learning from other people making the mistakes, then make sure you don't ever hire a coach. Just go ahead and make all the mistakes that are potentially avoidable. You know, there's a difference between learning the lessons from the failure and the feedback and making mistakes.
Mm.
Those are different.
Mm.
They can feel similar because we think the failure and the mistakes are, or we think the failure and the feedback are mistakes. And those aren't necessarily mistakes. The mistakes are strategic mistakes where people think, I'm just going to serve everybody with my message and let's just see how that works. You know, a good coach will go, yeah, that's a mistake. Like, I mean, that's what caused me to end up filing bankruptcy, is going from a pretty high level of success, over $300,000 in our first 18 months, to a crash that led to bankruptcy because I made that choice, right? So that's a mistake that I think most people need to avoid on their own. But in the process of trying, like getting out there and mixing it up and putting content out there, there will be failure. And I'm putting that in air quotes because that's what a lot of people perceive failure to be. But that's not necessarily a mistake, right? A mistake that a coach can help you avoid are the mistakes that might knock you out of the game. It could knock you out of the game emotionally or financially, energetically. They really cause people to lose certainty or lose confidence or lose permission to keep going. Those are the kinds of mistakes that I think almost everybody who wants to be a coach makes on their own. And a lot of times it's because they haven't paid attention to a coach or haven't hired a coach, like we've been talking about. And those mistakes can be devastating. You know, for me, thankfully, I had 18 months of success that I could go back to. Most people don't have the success before they make the big mistakes. So they don't have a team of people, or they don't have a track record, a recipe that they can go and say, I wonder what we were doing when we were succeeding, when we were bringing in 30, 40, $50,000 in a month. What were we doing back then? And fortunately, that was what I was able to do, is take a look at the recipe that was working. And then I was able to right the ship. But if my second 18 months had been my first 18 months, I mean, there's a chance nobody would know who I am. You know, at least in this industry, there's a chance that I wouldn't have made it. There's a chance that I couldn't have continued financially. I mean, I don't know how it all would have played out, but a lot of people make financial mistakes a lot of people make mistakes with financial consequences, not necessarily just financial mistakes, but mistakes that lead to financial consequences that cost too much money and they can't recover. And unfortunately, there's a lot of really, really good people with phenomenal messages and a lot of wisdom that a lot of people would pay for. And they just simply don't have the money anymore to write it out. And I think it's a function of the kinds of choices that we make when we're desperate and when we're wanting to build something new. And so often those choices aren't foundational, like we just talked about. And there's just a lot of people that can't recover. You know, the coaching graveyard is full of a lot of people that didn't avoid the early mistakes and they just couldn't recover.
That hit me so hard when you said that nobody would know who I was. I mean, just the impact of that. I mean, that's tangible in my life. Like, what would I be doing, right? If you had been knocked out, right? That was pre me finding you and reading your story, man. And just to think that that can be avoided by having somebody else just by your side as a guide.
Yeah, one of the things that I did, you mentioned the story a couple times, so we'll put a card here and link it in the description for people that want to read that story, which is an extremely powerful exercise.
Yeah.
I didn't realize how important it would be in my business to actually write a full, authentic, this is who I am story. Obviously, it touched you. I know you've written a lot of your own really vulnerable stories, not just your About Me story, but just the vulnerability in the messaging. And from a financial standpoint, I mean, I don't know how many clients have come from that story that I just wrote, just really just to get it out. Like, I didn't write it to get a bunch of clients,
Right.
but it has led to a lot of clients and a lot of money. So anyway, if any of you want to read that, then check it out. Um, and if anybody wants just support with any of this stuff, book a call, book a free call, and jump on the line with us. Obviously, we're kind of teasing out the reasons and having a little bit of fun, but I mean, this is the stuff that causes most people to miss, right? Miss the signs, miss the opportunities, miss their markets, just miss the boat because we try to do it on our own. All the things that we've already kind of alluded to. So this About Me story that really led to my uncovering, I would say. And a lot of people have told me that they specifically only trusted me because of what they heard in that story. Yeah, that was a huge turning point. And one of the things that I did when I was on the free fall, heading into bankruptcy after I made some of the mistakes, is I fired my coaches. I let go of the coaches, which just sped up the free fall because I didn't have anybody that was there helping me make choices that could potentially end the free fall that my choices had created. Just kind of makes sense, right? So I was using the same perspective, and all it did was speed up the free fall. And I think that's another mistake that a lot of us make because it makes sense. If we're losing money and if things aren't going well, then one of the things we should do is stop spending money. But I realized probably 2 years later that I had spent all of my time trying to plug the holes in my leaking boat rather than continuing to row. And that's, I'd say, one of, if not the main reason that it took me so long to recover. It's because I didn't continue doing the things that could pull me out of it. Should we put like some pick me up music? Maybe like right about this time?
I was just like I'm like reflecting on my life and where my life would be. And I'm thinking about you and just how we just like huddle in and just lick our wounds and just try to stay above water. And if we're just trying to keep our head up, we're not actually swimming. So if any sort of, gust or wave comes over, we're going back under again. And I'm wondering where you would be and what like your life would be like. So maybe.
Yeah, we might need like a positive dance break or something right here. We'll see.
That was my positive dance break music or moves.
Those are some solid moves right there.
Yeah, good stuff. So, you don't need a life coach if you like thinking that you're crazy.
Notice how I let you handle that one.
I was like, you started the list, so I would be here.
And
right?
I didn't want to tee that up. Not to be like insensitive, but I know this is one of your things and part of your story, and you help people avoid the one-way ticket to Crazy Town.
Absolutely. Yeah. Bless my heart. I mean, yeah, that's it. Like it ties so much into the other things that we've talked about, right? The commitment to the struggle and absolutely feeling like I was a crazy person who couldn't get any of this figured out while simultaneously having this like maniacal commitment to like not like all by, but like all by myself, right? Like just this um, really intense commitment. And then also not like feeling kind of stupid, Sean, that I couldn't figure it out and wondering what was wrong with me, and just not having somebody there to just say, hey, all of this stuff you're experiencing is actually normal. There's so many things that we experience, especially as entrepreneurs in an entrepreneurial journey, that are unlike any of the experiences I ever had as an employee. And oftentimes I thought that I was losing my mind because the things that I was experiencing that I wasn't getting solutions for in the typical employee way that I had been operating. And just to have somebody else to tap me on the shoulder or send me a text message or an email that says, this is completely normal. Everything you're going through is totally normal. This makes sense. Your results are in alignment with your work. The way that you're feeling, these emotions, completely normal. Did that, been there, done that, seen it. All of that just allowed me to breathe and recognize that I was totally on the right path, doing the right thing, and not, as I so often felt, with the one-way ticket on the fast track to crazy town. I mean, it's just to everything you said, right? I was the one inside the problem, operating from the problem perspective, trying to figure out what the solution is. It's no wonder I thought I was crazy.
Yeah, it's definitely a recipe for, I mean, for some people, not just crazy, but like maniacal craziness, especially if you really want this to work.
Yeah.
If you really want to be a coach, and we've been taught that if we're just disciplined and if we want it more and if we believe and if we do the affirmations and all the stuff, that tends to just make us continue to spin out. Um, the feeling of I'm crazy can get crazy. I mean, it can get intense. It can get maniacal, I think, and that's sad. Because there's a lot of really good people that can do this if they didn't follow that game plan. So the seventh one here, you alluded to it earlier, and you just kind of spoke to it about being crazy. Part of the thing that, or one of the things that makes us feel like we're crazy oftentimes, is feeling like we're alone. So if you enjoy wondering if you're the only one that struggles with doing videos, or you're the only one that doesn't know if you should do this or that, or you're the only one that thinks that all your stuff can, help everybody, even though people are telling you to pick a single target market or a single seeker. If you think you're the only one that has fears or doubts or worries when you go to share anything on social media, you're the only one that posts things on social media and not have a lot of responses. If you want to continue believing you're the only one, then just stay in your silo. If you want to know the truth and recognize that pretty much everybody is feeling the same feelings that you are and experiencing the same things that you are, because you're a human, and that's just the way that humans operate in this journey called entrepreneur, especially as a coach. I forget how I worded it, so I don't know how I need to complete this. But if you want to continue with the I'm the only one, then definitely don't get a coach. The reality is you're not the only one. The reality is, as Michelle just said a little while ago, you are in the norm. If you're struggling with doubts and thoughts about, I don't know if I should do this, and is this the way it's supposed to look or feel, or I was supposed to be so far ahead of where I am right now. I mean, we just finished a certification program, a 5-day certification. And one of the big takeaways from just about everybody in a group of 50 people was, wow, everybody else seems to be going through the same stuff I'm going through. And it doesn't immediately make the things go away, but at least it lets us know we're not the only ones. And therefore, it lowers the idea that maybe we are crazy. So this support that we need, this external perspective, is really critical for all kinds of strategic reasons. And this emotional one, it becomes emotional, I think, for most of us, is maybe the biggest reason, so that we don't think that we're the only loser, that we're the only one who's really struggling in the room. And that kind of support it's just massive. It's critical. We want to belong, so we don't want to think that we're the only loser. That's one of the reasons why a lot of people don't talk about some of the things that are real. You know, you mentioned that earlier. We don't talk about it because we don't want to be spotlighted as the only one. We don't want to be found out, right? And so we just keep the things to ourselves and we struggle. And for most of us, that's a recipe for quitting.
Yeah.
And we have a bonus one. We do. We have a bonus one. This is a 7+ bonus.
Wow.
You're pretty excited about this, huh?
I'm really excited. I'm thinking.
Yeah.
You tell them or should I?
Go ahead.
All right. If you want to be a fraud, if you love being an imposter, right? If you want to be fraudulent, you don't need a coach.
What's so funny about that is that being an imposter and being found out as a fraud is one of the things that so many people struggle with, right? And yet we do things that will cause us to legitimately feel like a fraud. In this case, not having a coach when you're selling coaching, not having paid for a coach, and yet asking other people to pay you as a coach. That's fraudulent. And that's one of the main reasons that people really struggle with selling a product that they haven't bought.
Mm-hmm.
There's not much more that we can sugarcoat that one. We're not interested in sugarcoating that one, because if you want to sell coaching, you need to be a product of the product.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're determined to not be a product of the product, then good I'm
luck.
Okay. Yeah, I'm okay with you struggling. Because the coaching industry, not the coaching industry, the clients deserve more.
Yeah.
The clients deserve more than people who are trying to shortcut their way into their wallets.
Mm-hmm.
So do the work. Hire the coach. Not just for all the reasons we've been talking about so you can avoid all the challenges, but do the work because you're selling coaching.
Yeah. Care enough about yourself and about the people that you serve.
Bingo. So I hope you enjoyed our 7 plus 1. And we got a couple cool things to tell people about. Number 1, my shirt. How do you like my shirt?
I love it. I want one. Size medium, whoever's sending them.
Okay. So this is a shirt that was created by a really cool company. It's called Into the AM, and they've got a powerful story. It's really supporting the hustlers, supporting the entrepreneurs that are putting in the work. Into the AM, which is the title of their company, the name of their company. And so they want to support our community as well. And there's a link in the description. You can check it out. They make a bunch of really cool shirts. This is an image of a tiger, and the writing here says courage. And so it's just a cool way to remember to be courageous. And the shirts feel great. I think they look really cool. They've got a neat kind of feel to all of their shirts. And they do shirts, and they make hoodies, and they make underwear, and they make stuff for men and women and masks and beanies and a lot of really cool stuff. And so if you click the link down below, then you get a discount from our particular channel. So go check them out, Into the AM. And then the second thing, you want to tell them about our brand new memberships?
Sure, I do. That's exciting. So another really cool way that you can support the channel is memberships. We have YouTube memberships, and there's different levels as far as ways that you can join and play with us a little bit more and spend some more time with us. There's like an entry level where you just get channel loyalty badges and fun emojis when you're commenting and engaging. We have another level where you can be a part of members only, like videos and posts and polls. And then a top tier where we're going to be giving like live coaching support, YouTube channel audits, and just a really just a cool opportunity to spend some more deep dive coaching time with us. So I'm excited about being able to hang out with you guys a little bit more. So make sure you subscribe to the channel, click the join button if you want to learn more about any of the YouTube membership.
And we can't wait to see you in some of the programs if they are a good fit for you. Now, if you like this video, take a look at that video where I'll break down for you how to identify and hire the perfect coach for you. If I really, truly want what's beyond my capacity, then I need help. It's just that simple.